Today's topic is 2026 mortgage production trends, and I'm thrilled to have with me Dave Savage. Dave is well known and an icon within our industry. He is Chief Growth Officer at TrustEngine, and obviously he's well known for the founder of Mortgage Coach. We're going to talk about the trends that you're seeing in the production side of our world, and also talk about your fabulous blogs that you do under the modern mortgage leadership, which I love to read. I think they're so great. And as I said, you need to do a book. So to take the highlights with them. And so let's talk about some trends that you're seeing. And then we'll talk about, some of these blogs and what you're seeing that top producers are doing differently.
Well, it's good to be here, Pat. Grateful for everything you
Hmm.
do. Love your books. Was honored to be in your most
Hmm.
recent one. And I love what I'm doing. For anyone that
Hmm.
isn't familiar with the Modern Mortgage Leadership newsletter, it's on LinkedIn. So you need to actually subscribe on LinkedIn. But
Hmm.
I've tried to go into this year being more intentional than ever. I've done long form weekly interviews with top producers for
Sure.
going on. This is my 16th year, but I came into this year saying, I need to do a better job of like breaking it down so that
Hmm.
it's actionable. And so first of all, that's something that I'm trying to do a better job of. And I would also say that's a leadership trend that I'm seeing in the industry,
Yeah.
where I think everybody has got the memo that getting loan officers to not just adopt technology, but adopt best practices
Hmm.
is what we need to do. And so I think there is a greater awareness of that than ever before. I have more lenders that I can identify that, like, this is the playbook. This is
Yeah.
how to roll out technology. This is how to get adoption of that technology. And still, it's not the majority of
Hmm.
lenders that are getting, like with our particular product, where we're at the point of sale and we're really helping loan officers deliver advice with price.
Hmm.
Like, if a company has 70% of their loan officers doing that, that is top 5% in the country. If they're over 50%, they're, in the top 20-ish percent. And so we're just seeing, I think we're finally seeing lenders be more effective and technology companies be more effective with adoption of best practices at scale. And so that's one trend.
And so let's talk about. I read them all the time, and I think everybody that's listening should also subscribe because I think they're fabulous. And the last one, which I liked a lot, which is the life cycle stewardship that you talk about, and I thought that that was an interesting way to talk about how our world has definitely moved from transactional to now this really advisory role, which I think some lenders and maybe some loan officers don't understand. We're in a much different place. So talk about, from your viewpoint, what does it mean to now be really an advisor is what we're saying.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple really key components to that.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I believe it starts with a mindset that
Mm-hmm.
that I don't that table stakes of closing a loan on time at a good rate,
Mm-hmm.
like that's a transaction which
Mm-hmm.
can be automated and will be automated. And
Right.
then there's really serving a family beyond the transaction. And so some of that is just in the conversation going from, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your goals? How old do you want to be when you've
Mm-hmm.
achieved home ownership and financial freedom? And then,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
within that call it the pre-qual experience, call it the discovery call, but come out of that with a roadmap. If it's someone who's renting, it's a roadmap to home ownership. If
Mm-hmm.
it's someone that is buying their first home, like, it's a roadmap. What does the second home look like? If it's someone that's on their third home, you're always just vision casting and helping them look at a longer term
Mm-hmm.
window than just the transaction. And so that's a really key component of what is a mortgage advisor versus a loan officer. And then another part of that is that you have the systems, you use the systems. Like, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of lenders now have data signals that will
Mm-hmm.
provide some propensity scores to clients, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
let loan officers know who are the highest, most likely people
Mm-hmm.
to call right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the top loan officers are taking action on that. And so It's being at the right place at the right time for a consumer. And that's a combination of technology
Mhm.
and taking action on the technology.
So I liked, especially the last few. There was a top producer that lived in California, but actually served the Phoenix market, and she talked about how the discovery call, how she handled it, and I thought if you could explain to the listeners what she was doing is really smart because it sets up the future agenda that you're talking about and how she customized her follow-up component to it. I just thought that is the state of smart origination today.
Oh yeah, I think. By the way, I think you're referring to Jessica
Yeah, Jessica, correct.
and actually just to get the states right, all of her business comes from Denver, Colorado, where she grew
Oh,
up and
okay.
lived. And during COVID, for personal reasons, her and her husband decided to relocate to Newport Beach, California, to
Hmm.
raise their kids. But I mean, she's doing 122 million last year, over
Right,
200 loans, and 95% of them are in Colorado.
right,
And by the way, you're referring the article I wrote where I kind of took it as an opportunity to update the lead conversion playbook.
correct. Hmm.
And I would say she's a good example of, and by the way, there's a number of strategies that she implements, but
Yes.
the key is she does all of them consistently. How she trains her realtors to refer is
Hmm.
different. We call it speed to need. And the questions that she was asking, they're not radically different than a lot of loan officers ask, but she asked all the right questions to get to the needs of the consumer. And then she talked over and over how it's not about rates, it's
Yeah.
about the strategy to the consumer, which by the way, I don't want to say exactly what her concessions are, but they're in the top 1% in the country.
Sure.
Like
Right.
like we're talking single
Hmm.
digits, low single digits concessions
Correct.
for price
Right.
concessions, and most loan officers are costing their companies over 20 basis points in pricing concessions. And most lenders have, when they look at what concessions cost them, it's 20, 40, it's a lot of basis points. And so I think that's another little heads up to everyone. You're starting to see lenders get wise to this, that you're
Yeah.
sitting, I think most lenders are sitting on over 100 basis points in uncaptured profits,
Right.
because this one touch point, what instead of delivering a fee worksheet, you deliver
Hmm.
advice, can save a lender 20 plus basis points. And I think that's another trend you're seeing lenders do. We call it Moneyball mortgage, where they're going beyond just measuring how many loans did they close, how do they
Hmm.
rate, what's their volume, what are their GC,
Correct.
how much total top line
Hmm.
revenue. We're seeing
Yeah.
people play Moneyball mortgage more effectively.
Yeah, the thing I think about it is the problem is the concessions should be really be called losses. And so when they made that mistake, I just think I'm glad to hear certainly that the lenders are addressing it because it does say something about that we allowed that to go on for a long time. So if you had to say, when you look at Jessica and these other folks that you've interviewed over the last 6 months, what are some of the things that maybe the three things that you see them doing that maybe that the average person isn't doing?
Well, I always say that the difference between good and great
Hmm.
is consistency. When,
Yeah,
when you find these people that are top 10%, top 1%, they have best practices that they implement
yeah. Hmm.
consistently and into the details, like how to train your realtor or your referral partner to refer you a business matters. Speed to need is another one where they're not just getting to the consumer first, which speed to lead
Hmm.
matters as much today as it did a long time ago.
Hmm.
It's just now we have new technology and there's a new, even faster expectation that consumers have to
Right.
getting there first. But just getting there first isn't enough. Getting to the needs of the consumer and not just a loan transaction, I think
Hmm.
is critical. I would say I'm trying to think, I don't know that there's a single top producer I've interviewed in the last 6 months that is not taking personal branding serious
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and really up leveling not just how they show up with a Google search, but how they show up with an AI search.
Correct.
And I think all of them are taking their personal brand serious. Now that doesn't mean they all have a show and they're like this social media celebrity. By the way, there's more of those loan officers
Sure.
do
Mhm.
consistently do that. But I say, there's a lot of them though that, hey, I want to make sure I'm creating content, knowing that there's AI powered consumers and they're using it and they know they're communicating with a human and they know they're communicating with AI.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they have a higher, so that's another thing that I don't think a single person I've
Mm.
interviewed that is winning at a really elite level is not doing that.
So, Dave, one of the things that I see, and you're talking about it, and we just talked about it before we got on for the interview, but I do see the better originators, the more successful, are willing to use the technology. I mean, which to me is somewhat of a gigantic segment between originators, and I don't think it's an age issue. I think it's a mindset issue that the better ones are moving along with the customer and the marketplace. The others are waiting it to go back to the old days, and it's not.
Yeah. So first thing I want to answer that is technology adoption is absolutely not an age thing. I have
Yeah,
witnessed an incredible number
sure.
of boomers, of old Xers
Mhm.
that adopt technology.
Correct.
And now you don't even need great keyboard skills anymore.
Yeah,
You
right.
need voice to text.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, little tip for everyone, there's an app that I love called Whisperflow that is a text voice to text app that I'm
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with. It's really boosted my productivity. But it is a mindset. And I would just push that if anyone's listening to this and you have this mindset where like I'm not good with technology, I don't like it, or I'm just not, it's not me,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah.
just I would just push you to adjust that mindset. Doesn't mean you need to become a coder, although vibe coding, I'm seeing people that have never coded that are actually creating some
Yeah.
really cool things that improve the processes and the consistent implementation of best practice processes. But I just think that mindset is changing. Like people that because I speak at a lot of sales rallies,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had people come up to me that were technology adverse 2 or 3 years ago that are like, hey, Dave, I'm doing blank and blank and blank. And I'm like, great job. So I'm seeing a lot of, I guess, from transactional mindset to transformational mindset. I am seeing that happen at record levels. Like I think that is a
Yeah.
trend that is accelerating.
Well, they have no choice, that's for sure, because at some point that is the world today. So, talk about, are you seeing more top producers going direct to the consumer and versus the realtor side or the referral source side? Or how do you see that? What are you seeing going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, I don't think that's a new trend. I mean, I do think
No.
we've seen more and more loan officers, and I've always advocated that your number one priority, regardless of what your source is, should be your own database. And
Hmm.
if you can have a great pillar where you're optimizing your database, that's going to position you to be even more valuable to realtors. So that I think I still don't think that's the norm. I don't think
It isn't.
I
No,
don't think
right.
most loan officers
Mm.
are executing well on that to me just clear strategy. But I think the personal brand is a push into consumer direct. I think
Hmm.
I've interviewed two top producers this year, so the past couple months, that have gotten top of the funnel new borrowers through AI, where they found them with a chat GPT prompt. I've talked to loan officers that have new realtor relationships through a prompt. Now, by the way, I've talked to out of probably 30 interviews, three of them called that out. I think by the end of the year, that'll not be very, very common, you know. In terms of just pure direct to consumer, I mean, it's
Hmm.
coming back just because the refi market is here.
Sure.
So I think that's somewhat of a market push that yeah, we're seeing that happen.
So when you talk about them using the prompts to get, AI is helping them get a lead. And so what is it that whether they're using ChatGPT or any of these other ones. So what is it that the loan officer is doing that generates, because obviously the consumer is putting a prompt in, I need a mortgage loan in Phoenix or someplace. And so, and then that's directing them to that particular loan officer or whatever. And so is that how you see it being used?
Yeah, so I think, one, uh, it's called schema.
Hmm.
So they're, AI is looking for,
Right,
could be a website. So a
right.
blog. There's a technology that's pretty common in our world called housing link. It's
Hmm.
housing.link. So it could be a loan officer could use it as their put mortgage coach in it, put a video in it, and it could
Correct.
be turned into schema. You're seeing like Tom Ferry is telling every realtor out there that you need
Yeah.
to be creating content for AI. So you're seeing loan officers, primarily strategies I'm hearing are more aggressive on YouTube because that is AI
Yep.
code, more blog posts on all channels, uh,
Right.
tools like housing.link that actually turn the content you create
Hmm.
into schema, the AI picks up. So those are, oh, and by the way, I'm seeing and hearing more loan officers than ever on Reddit. I didn't even hear Reddit come up in conversations 2, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I
Right.
did, it was more of the fringe players.
Yeah.
But it seems like I'm seeing more loan officers that are tuning into that, paying attention to it, being strategic with it.
So when you talk about consistency as the big difference between loan officers, the better producers versus the others. And so what does consistency look like? In other words, what are you seeing that, I mean, it could be that they should be using Mortgage Coach and then they need to be doing it like, not once every 7 months, but, more frequent. How would you define consistency?
Yeah, so I'll give you two examples of the
Mm-hmm.
difference between just exceptional top
Mm-hmm.
10%, top 1% and the rest. So I mean, like in the mortgage coach situation, I'd say a typical LO has enough of a conversation for the customer to say, yeah, you can run my credit report and
Mm-hmm.
let's move forward. A top producer is gonna like every time, every consumer, they're gonna show them options.
Yeah.
They're gonna show them how, oh, did you know you could prepay your mortgage and pay off your house faster? Like when they
Mm-hmm.
identify things that get the consumer to say, oh wow, and they
Mm-hmm.
get the consumer to think differently, like they're gonna do that every time. Whereas average LO is just
Doesn't do that.
here's your
Right.
fee worksheet. And now if the consumer pushes back and grinds them, is price shopping them, then they're like, oh, okay, I need to throw the
Mm-hmm.
kitchen sink out of them. For example, data signals. The best producers, I call it win by noon,
Mm-hmm.
they get their prospecting in, most of them by noon. They're
Mm-hmm.
not doing their prospecting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
So by the way, I have interviewed people that kill it that, oh, I like to do it in the afternoon. By the way, that's not the norm. But
Hmm.
if they say that that's how I like to do it,
Yeah.
they do it by 2 o'clock every day. But most of them are just, they're when they get data signals from whatever company they work with, whatever CRM they have, every morning they spend 15 minutes and reach out to their data
Hmm.
signals. Whereas
Hmm.
average LO will like, I'll do that 1 or 2 days
Later
a
on.
week. I'll take a week off. I'll do it 3 days the next
Yeah.
week. Top
Yeah.
producers are just programmed. Like I first thing, I'm getting my data signal calls and I'm hitting
Yeah.
whatever prospecting goal I have by noon, and it's an
Yeah.
exception when they miss it.
Is it fair to say, and I definitely agree with you, that's what I definitely see, and that's certainly of what I teach when I'm teaching prospecting. But I will say that the average loan officer works the pipeline first thing in the morning. Whatever that is. The administrative side is how I would kind of determine it. And the others are never losing on the prospecting side. And I have interviewed, just like you, top guys that are doing 400 million or whatever it is. They still prospect. I mean, it's not a miracle. I mean, is that what you're seeing?
Oh yeah, they are addicted to getting their prospecting in. Like
Yeah.
they won't let it get in. They will not let the transactional pipeline hijack their day.
Right.
and they have habits and they have skills that
Hmm.
require them to do their prospecting first.
Yeah. Is that just calendar blocking is what you're seeing, or is it they're just
I,
doing that?
different strokes for different folks, but
Yeah.
there's no doubt some of the most successful coaching programs of like, have theme days like every Tuesday
Yeah.
doing this,
Just this. Yeah.
blocking a from 9 to 11, you
Yeah.
know, outbound prospecting, which by the way, for anyone listening, is outbound prospecting doesn't necessarily mean
Hmm.
cold calling people anymore. In
No.
fact,
Right.
oftentimes now you'll text someone and say, "Hey, you got a minute?" And
Yeah.
then, and then you talk to them. So, I don't think this is new, but I do think we are totally in an age of multi-channel communication, which is, and by the way, voice. If they
Yeah.
have an Apple phone, you can leave a little voice message. You're seeing a lot of videos on mobile apps. I see a lot of loan officers that will actually do a little
Hmm.
30-second or 1 minute video on their mobile phone to a customer but multi-channel communication and making sure they're getting their prospecting in first thing in the day.
So, if we had to really say two or three things for our listeners on, besides we know it needs to be consistency. If you want to change your production, what are some of the two or three things or a couple things that people should be doing?
Well, I think it's going to be different for everyone listening to it.
Yeah.
Uh, I think you need to, first of all, know your conversion credit report to close loan so that we
Hmm.
know, hey, do I have a killer conversion rate or can I literally double my income by improving my conversion? So
Correct.
credit report to close loan. And then I think database conversion.
Hmm.
Really look at how many people you have in your database that are actionable and what percentage of those people are you doing refis for? Obviously, depending on market cycles,
Hmm.
sometimes not very many, and that's okay. It doesn't mean your systems are wrong. And then sometimes it's like, oh my God, you should just have a system to make sure that you're optimizing your database. And then I would just have you kind of go through and really rate yourself. Try to do it is with as much personal awareness as possible.
Hmm.
Because I do think the originator of the future has to kill it with technology. So like
Yes.
where do
Hmm.
you rate yourself there? And if it's weak, you just need to work on brainwashing yourself to where it's better. By the way, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins' books.
Yeah.
Whenever I want to do some reprogramming of myself, which I do from time to time, I go back and listen to some of his content. And then I think we're in an era where we need to use technology, but we also need to be this awesome human being that's more present with people. And I would rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Where are you at in terms of when you're with a borrower, when you're with a realtor, you are present. And by the way, that was the thing that I had to work on the most because I am ADD, dyslexic. I've always leveraged technology really well. I have good keyboard skills. Thank you. I
Hmm.
took typing in high school, probably the most valuable class I took in high school that served me as an adult. I could type like 80 words a minute. But you know, score yourself on both that technology and then being present with people. Because if you can do all those things and then you're measuring conversion, credit reports, conversion of your database, you'll figure it out. You'll know where to work on improving yourself.
Well, Dave, it's always fabulous to talk to you. I hear a book out of that. I think you need to go to that step. I
Yeah,
know you're coming out with your own book, The Savage Code. So talk about that for a few minutes before we wrap up.
yeah. So I'm not going to give the whole backstory to it, but I'm writing it with my son, and in the book, it will talk about how I did it. But I ended up when he graduated from college wanting to do something really special for him a couple of years ago, and I wrote this document, and it was
Hmm.
very much inspired from Ray Dalio's book Principles. And
Sure.
after I had read Ray's book, I started documenting my principles, beliefs, philosophies, mantras. So for me, one of the mantras that I started using in the 90s was my advice makes a difference. Like that
Uh-huh.
it's not only a belief, that I had
Mm-hmm.
myself as an originator, but that was part of my value prop. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of my code. My advice makes a difference. And so the book is going to be about like, what's your code? What are your beliefs, your philosophy,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and really help people get good at documenting those.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only will you live your code better, you can also throw that code into AI. You can put your personal
Yeah.
code into AI, and not only does it help you
Mm-hmm.
as a human, it also helps customize
Mm-hmm.
and really dial in your AI. So yeah, that's the book, Savage Code, and it's going to share my code, and then it's also going to help
Mm-hmm.
people do a better job of knowing their code and living their code.
So when is it coming out? I want you to come back because you talked to me
I
before
don't have
about
a
it.
release date, but I mean,
Okay.
my goal is Q3. Like definitely by the end of the year. And if I had a
Okay.
guess, I'm trending towards August. And I would say by the end of next month, I'll have a launch date. I'll start, kind of pre-marketing it.
Okay, cool. Because I can help you with the Amazon Kindle world, which is the publication can be quick. So we're going to be watching you. So
Yeah, no,
I
I hired a publisher,
I-
a hybrid publisher to help me get it across the finish line because I just needed
yeah,
some
yeah,
accountability and some help.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be
Oh,
exciting.
I think it's going to be fabulous. I want to interview about that. And certainly I want to hear, I know you're making updates to Mortgage Coach. So when you're ready for that, let's talk about that because I think that's really kind of cool. And I think it should be something that all loan officers really are tapping into. It helps you in the advice side. And it's just a critical component. I don't know how you can do it. You can't present options unless you have the presentation side. So it's not,
It,
yeah.
it is the difference between good and great. And I
Yes,
would
I
just
would agree.
push everybody that the best loan officers are delivering a great experience to the consumer,
Yes.
and good is just not
It's not
good
enough
going
anymore.
forward.
Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you? Because I know you're out there all the time, but how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I'm, on all social media channels, but I really put the most time and attention weekly on both LinkedIn and YouTube. Mortgage
Mm-hmm.
Coach is the YouTube channel, Dave Savage on LinkedIn. And then I have a web page, savageinsights.com.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to savageinsights.com, whatever I'm doing next will be there. And then also I have a mobile club. If you want to sign up for that, the phone number is at savageinsights.com. And a couple times a week, I send out a text for anybody that
Mm-hmm.
wants to go from loan officer to advisor, or
Mm-hmm.
for anyone who just wants to kind of live at their best
Mm-hmm.
going forward in the mortgage business.
Well, I highly recommend all our listeners today to check all that out, to subscribe. I love all the posts that you do, and I think it's fabulous what you're doing for sure. And I think as an icon in our industry, I'm thrilled to talk to you today. So everyone, listen to what Dave has to say. He's right on with all of it. If you want to move to good to great, you have to obviously make these changes. So thanks, Dave, and certainly for our listeners, every Monday we come out with a new interview, and certainly subscribe. So thanks a lot, Dave.
I appreciate you, Pat. Take care, everybody.
Check out my new book, Mortgage Manager Mastery, where 23 mortgage sales leaders shared their best practice in managing sales staff. The book is available on Amazon and Kindle or paperback.